Latinx is, I think, diminutive of who we are as a people. It impersonalizes us. I think Latinx sounds like a robot. I don't want to be a robot.
What is your process when you sit down to actually put pen to paper to come up with a poem? Do you think of it?
No, it is. I think poetry is the more spiritual of the arts. It comes to you. I'm pretty sure it comes to artists in the form of color, texture, the palette. For me, the little voices in my head, the images become little voices, and the little voices become words. And that's how I do it, based on pure feeling. I don't sit down and intellectually write a poem. For me, that's impossible. I don't construct a poem, I just write it. And it comes out like that.
Do you have a poem?
There's one I wanted to read. Yeah, I wanted to read this to you. It's called Love and Happiness. There is no pride in loneliness. The spirit scholars speak of challenges to the soul, of bravely shouldering solitude. Fine for rainy weekends, for weekdays filled with jobs and things to do. But rainy weekends crush bubbles of hope like red tulips by gray boulders. The one you pine for is not there, and you sit by the television set where phony love stories prance before you in a blur as you switch the remote to avoid the faintest remembrance. There is no pride in loneliness, no sense of discretion. You will make that call around the corner or overseas just to hear that voice, just to feel a sliver of faith that it'll be okay someday. We live for love. We live to love. And if we make imperfect choices from time to time, it is only to remind us we have some growing up to do, some real learning about what we mean to people, what we feel about ourselves. There's no pride in loneliness. And having seen embittered souls who ran from or rejected those outstretched arms for fear of hurt or failure, I've come to the conclusion that God is love. And I want to be where He is.
I love that. I love that poem. So I have a couple more questions for you. Where would you like to see your poetry in the next 5 years?
I'd like to see it all over the world. First in the United States, among my people, but I'd like to see it all over the world. Translated in many languages.
What do you think your superpower is?
Oration. Being able to speak extemporaneously, being able to read and understand as I read very quickly, and being able to translate that abstraction into words that people understand. The intellect is meaningless if we're not able to take these ideas and bring them to our mothers, fathers, nephews, nieces, friends, and explain them to them. Whether they accept it or reject it is beside the point. Explain it to them. So my gift is being able to explain it, to read it in its entirety and in its obtuseness, and then explain it to people.
I would add 2 other superpowers that you have. The first one is that you can connect with anybody at any time, anywhere. From the cab driver to the imam to the pastor to the homeless man on the street, you are able to talk to anybody with love.
Well, the reason I was raised in the church, the Pentecostal church, and there's one thing they taught me is to be empathetic. But the other thing is I read a lot, and so I know their cultures. So when I'm in a cab and I'm speaking to a guy from Morocco, I know exactly the history of his country. If I'm speaking to someone from Yemen, if I'm speaking to someone from Jordan, if I'm speaking to someone from Russia, Belarus, or Kazakhstan, I'm able to talk to them about their countries because I've read about it. And I try not only to read, I like to get into the viscera of that particular country and culture. I have a maintenance guy here who's Albanian. And we sit and talk about Albania all the time. He can't believe that I know about it. For example, the Albanians fought the Nazis. Nobody knows that. They also fought the communists, but they fought the Nazis, saved a lot of Jewish families. How do you know this stuff? it's that we confine ourselves, and others confine us into silos. Well, if he's black and he's Puerto Rican, how could he ever know this? You have to.
Well, that is something. That is something that when you start to, I hear it all the time when in cabs or just at the supermarket, when you start having a conversation with somebody, they always say that to you. How do you know this stuff?
Yeah, they're in shock because they don't know that much about our country. And what I want them to understand is that there are black people who are interested in your culture. There are black Puerto Ricans who are interested in your culture. And just because I come from an island 100 miles by 100 miles long by 35 miles wide, doesn't mean that I'm not interested in your culture and in what you do and in how you do it. And I think we need to do that more. I'm positive that they will never see Puerto Ricans again the same way once they see me. It's like, you can get mad at white folks, you can get mad at what they do, but once in a while you come across a white person who's simply angelic and brilliant and empathetic, and you can never look at them the same way again.
What does Hispanic Heritage Month mean to you?
Not much, because we haven't institutionalized anything. I hate the word Hispanic. Latino heritage is different. Hispanic is a federal word that was made up somewhere, and people love it. For those who would rather identify with Spain, they love that. I think that Latino heritage is where we need to go with this. I do not like the word. I would hope that we could, the Latinx thing is another thing I don't like. It is part of this polyglot, part of this double speak. If you want to include gays and you want to include men and women, so you don't have to say Latino or Latina, then just say Latin. Just say Latin, Latino, Latin. Just say these are Latin people. You don't have to go through. I'm just against it. I think we have enough confusion concerning identity these days. Why do you have to add to it by bringing in everything from gender to belly buttons? It doesn't make sense to me. But then again, that's me. I'm from a different generation. Latinx is, I think, diminutive of who we are as a people. It impersonalizes us. I think Latinx sounds like a robot. I don't want to be a robot.
How can Latinos support each other, no matter what island you're from or what country you're from in America? How can we get Latinos to come together and just support each other to make us a big voice in this country?
I think it's going to happen whether we like it or not. I think it's bound to happen. It is inevitable. There was a time that black people divided themselves into tribes. They were Jamaicans, they were Trinidadians, they were Southern blacks, they were from all over, everything in the diaspora, but they weren't black. They were black superficially, but they had very different concepts of self-esteem, confidence, and coalition. It took three things. It took A, brutality. Once they got beaten over their heads, the same way black Americans did, Jamaicans understood and Haitians understood they are black, and that they should identify with the struggles of black people. Two, their kids were playing with black kids. So they became black by osmosis. They had to understand. They had to agree that we have to deal with this question of blackness and its unifying factor and the cohesion of black people that we need. And three, they hobnobbed with their neighbors. You can try to be different all you want, but you get on the subway in New York, you are smelling different smells, you are seeing different dress styles, you are seeing beards, you see payasses on the Orthodox Jews, you see turbans on the part of Sikhs, you see kufis on the part of Muslims. I mean, you see things that are different, and you begin to accept it as normal. Diversity becomes a beautiful thing. What we're hoping is diversity becomes inclusion as well. The inclusion of diversity is important also. But in New York, you can't help but begin to understand that you're all one. So those three things are the things that led black people to understand that we are all African American. Now, the same thing is happening with Latinos. We're having our kids are dating, marrying, having children with other Latinos. So that's one thing that's beginning to make us come more together. We're getting oppressed the same way. Guatemalans are getting their butts kicked. Mexicans are being paid substandard wages. We're supporting them, as we always have. Dominicans are going through, they thought they were not black until they came here, and they realized, oh, you don't want to be black? Once their butts got kicked, they understood where we were coming from. And so now we're establishing, I call, a Latino consciousness, and it's going to happen. And it doesn't require that you speak Spanish fluently. It's nice, it's a great byproduct, but what we need is Latin power. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to speak patois or speak with a Jamaican accent or speak Haitian, Creole, or Dutch, or papamiento, or any of those languages, or French. It means we are together in ideology. We understand that we're in this together, and we're going to fight as one people. I predict that in 30 years, 30 to 40 years, well, first of all, we're going to see a Latino president, but I predict that we will see Latin power grow the likes of which you've never seen before. We're the largest ethnic group in this country today, and I think what they're really afraid of, what the men and women who are in charge of white skin privileges are afraid of, is that this group that's coming from the South, from South America to here, from Mexico to here, is going to take over America. I'd like to offer them a little bit of advice. It already has happened. It's done. It's a done deal. Whether it's Chicago, LA, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Philadelphia, Miami, New York, or Chicago, we are here to stay.
What is the best advice you've ever gotten in the entertainment business?
Show up. Show up. Stay up and show up. Be consistent. Try to avoid impulsive behavior. Try to avoid just punching somebody in the face. And I did that on the regular. It cost me jobs. It cost me reputation. I stood for my honor. And I do not suggest everybody doing this, but I learned to show up. I have a friend of mine in LA who tells me all the time, you've got to show up. You've got, no matter what you feel, your feelings control too much of what you do. Show up and be disciplined. Get up in the morning even when you don't want to. And so I'm applying that now to a few things. I'm applying that to my weight. I'm trying not to lift weights because I want to be on a Schwarzenegger soon. I like being in shape. I am applying that to my poetry. I'm applying the follow through. It's show up and follow through. Those are the best. That's the best advice I've ever gotten.
What encouragement or advice can you give a young person out there?
That sounds like a simple question, but it is probably the most profound question that you've preferred to me. What I would do is I would say, read as much as you can. Investigate and research as much as you can. When you don't research and you don't investigate, you have no right to speak. Travel. Travel everywhere. Travel now while you're young. Go to every country that you ever dreamed of. And I don't care if they're white countries, African countries, subcontinental countries, South Asian. Go and find out what the world is like. A lot of us know nothing about Tahiti. We think we know Hawaii because it's a tropical paradise. We don't really know the history of Hawaii, and if you did, you'd cry at what they've done to that people. We don't know Nicaragua. We know Cuba because Cuba fought for its independence in 1959, and so a lot of us have gone there. But you need to go into the hinterlands of Cuba, not just Santa Clara or Matanzas or La Habana. You need to know Puerto Rico. Your neighbors may be Puerto Rican, and you may know them, and you've known them all your life. But have you gone into the hills of Utuado, Jayuya, Morovis, Ciales? That's where you, Moca, Hormigueros, that's where you need to go. You need to go to Cabo Rojo. See the people, see the richness of the culture. It's not just San Juan and Ponce. Have you gone to Czechoslovakia? Have you gone to Serbia? Have you gone to Austria? Have you gone to Germany? Get to see those places. Japan. I have a friend of mine, a trombonist, who just married a Japanese wife, and he's living in Japan and doing well. We need to go to China. Let's begin to travel and become world travelers so that we can begin to speak the language of diplomacy as we take power. Latinos will be taking power. How can you handle it? And what's wonderful about us is that Puerto Ricans in particular, we're the diplomats of the world already. Everybody comes through Puerto Rico. Hey, man, can you talk to that boy and get him to cool out? Because we're black, we're white, we're Asian, we're all of those things. And we have all of that in our blood. So I think if I had advice for young people today, I would say be careful with dream killers, people who tell you that your dream is meaningless and it'll never happen. Stay away from them. Drop them like they're hot. Somebody, you're living in the projects and your mother's on assistance and they tell you, and you want to go where? You want to go to Germany and hang out? Man, what's wrong with you? You know, you from here, man. You can't go nowhere. Drop those friends like they're hot. Get away from them. Whether they're boyfriends, girlfriends, or even family. Leave them alone and go travel for you. Find out what the world is like yourself. The most important, if I had to pick something that's most important, read. Read and educate yourself. There's this new trend, I don't need to go to college because it doesn't make any difference anyway. College is not for you to make money. College is for you to understand your rights as a citizen, not only of this country, but of the world. To understand what the precedents are of this world. That's what college is for. To exchange ideas. College is for critical thinking, critical reasoning. That's what it is. Make a decision between this and that. Why should you make that decision? Those are important aspects of the college education. And to socialize with people from other cultures. So I would say get educated and read as much as you can.